With eBay Refurbished, you have a choice of refurbished qualities to best fit your budget. Certified refurbished items are restored by the manufacturer to like new for up to 50% off. This drill was barely out of the box. Soon it will be back to working like new. Here's how it works. Every item is carefully inspected. Any imperfections are fixed by the manufacturer or manufacturer-approved vendor. Then it's tested to make sure it's working perfectly. Once it passes inspection, it's given the verified stamp of approval. Then repackaged with new accessories and shipped to its ultimate destination. With Certified Refurbished, you can shop with confidence because all our manufacturers go through a rigorous vetting process. And every purchase comes with an award-winning 2-year warranty, a money-back guarantee, and hassle-free returns. That's what makes it the smarter way to shop for premium brands. eBay Refurbished. Like new products, better than new prices.
What up, gamers? It's Valorant time. Welcome to day 2 of week 2 of split 1 of Knights Arena Valorant Challengers North America. I'm finding new ways to say that every single day, and I promise I will try to keep it as original as I possibly can. Yesterday, we did see a couple of matches. Teams that weren't expected to lose ended up finding a loss, but before we dig into any of that, I want to remind you guys at home, we've got this thing. It's called the Fan Zone. If you haven't joined it yet, I advise that you do. You can head on over to pks.gg/discord. If you've watched any of the post-game interviews, we always ask a question that was asked from someone in the fan zone. So if you want to ask a question to one of the many players playing currently in Challengers, head on over to pks.gg/discord, and you can potentially see your question on air. But let's bring in our casters for today. I said it, I feel like a babysitter because I have the young bloods and Sully and Upmind, but it's going to be an interesting week. We have 2 more matches set up today. But just looking at yesterday, we were talking about it on the desk. Sully, we saw teams lose that we didn't expect to see lose, like Shopify Rebellion, that now really throws a spanner in the works for Group A. All right, let's send that one over to Upmind because apparently
Hi.
Sully's muted. These youngbloods just can't figure out audio. Does someone who has a production background want to help these guys out?
Yeah, I had to refresh while you were talking too, so I feel the pain. But yeah, no, yesterday throws a complete spanner into the works because Shopify, they were pretty much estimated to be like a top 3 team for the rest of this season, and they've already lost. And there's a lot of weird schedules coming up, especially in this group where a lot of the teams have M80 followed by the guard. But I think going into the rest of the tournament period, just from yesterday's results, we can kind of think that the invited teams are just a bit mortal.
Let's take a look at the standings. You guys can see how things broke down yesterday, just in case you didn't watch, because what effectively happened is Oxford's pulled off a big upset in taking down Shopify Rebellion. Now, obviously, the way it's sorted right now, it's a little bit interesting. We're still waiting on clarification, but I believe Oxygen is technically the 3 seed because even though round differential puts them below Shopify, they beat Shopify. They have the head-to-head. So Oxygen Esports actually becomes the number 3. Here's why this is so important. This group is one big coin toss. G2 is the only team that comes in with major hype besides Shopify. Shopify came in as a team that people were saying the same things last year as they are this year. Pretty good team, inconsistent in their results. Yesterday, pretty much continues that. We see that Shopify is still struggling to find that level of consistency that we hope we can see them find because they do have some serious talent on that roster. Because of that, now the remaining 2 through 4 spots are pretty much anyone's. Like, this could go in any direction. There is a world where Breakthrough and Turtle and Oxygen Esports all qualify. Shopify Rebellion and FaZe both get knocked out. There's even a world where G2 isn't even in the place that they're in because we still don't really know what to expect from this team. We've only seen them play one match. So Group A did get a little spicy yesterday. Group B, things went a little bit more the direction you would expect. As we saw the guard things, guard just proving that if you want to be the best team, you have to be the best team every single week. Does not matter who you're playing. You got to put on a show and a performance, and that's exactly what they did, Gus. They've got now a very healthy round differential at plus 31 and a 2-0 record to boot.
Yeah, I mean, the rest of the season should be pretty much the same for the guard. I mean, it's what we expected out of their group. We're still very much looking forward to the big game against M80 and potentially their game against TSM coming up next week. But for the rest of this group, we just have to focus on the fact that OR Esports, they've gotten the 2 biggest games in their schedule out of the way. The Guard and M80 are gone. Now they just face up against TSM, Mad Lions, and Disguised. 3 teams that are a little bit more near their level, and they already showed some pretty good progress against M80. Of course, just beating them out on a map. You could say that about pretty much any of the other 3 teams outside of the Guard and M80. There are some decent chances for them to get some maps back, but it's going to be pretty for the 3rd and 4th spots.
Now we can also take a look at the schedule for today. We'll see what matches we're going to feature on air. We have obviously today and tomorrow for the rest of this week. But we're going to be seeing one of the teams you were just talking about later today. We're talking about M80. It's a team who in their opening series probably could have done a little bit better. They surrendered a match. Who went down 2-0 yesterday to Guard in pretty rough fashion. Guard looked just absolutely dominant. So M80 really needs to solidify their position as the number 2 team with a win today over TSM. And I don't think that that's necessarily guaranteed. But let's look further forward. And Sully, looking at that first series, we've got Disguise versus Mad Lions. And I do feel like when you look at this match, Disguise versus Mad Lions, it could go either direction.
Yeah, it's honestly really hard to tell which way this could go because this is such a critical map or series for both of these teams, right? You lose this game, you go 0-2, and then you're kind of in a really tricky position for the rest of this challenger split. We're hovering around that 6th, 5th spot, and you're fighting for that 4th place spot. So it's a really important game, and one thing that I'm curious to see is, okay, Disguise, what changes have you made? Mad Lions, you were extremely close in that game against TSM. You know, a handful of rounds go the other way, and that could have been a 2-0 series, or at least a 2-1 series in the favor of the Mad Lions. So we know these 2 teams are 2 teams with a lot of promise. A lot of people know Disguise, and especially that core, that X-Knights core from last year, and what they can do. And a lot of people, I think, going into open qualifiers, if I remember, Gus, and a lot of people were like, this Dark Ratio team, now newly signed to Mad Lions, they should straight up qualify with 2-0 map record throughout the whole qualifiers. They struggled, they went through the lower bracket, but now they're here, and you know, we got they can do against TSM. They looked pretty good.
They did. I mean, last week we did finally get that map from Mad Lions that we were just waiting from the open qualifiers. When are we finally going to get Trick on, really on his ish in terms of IGLing? When are we going to get the full Mad Lions team actually being able to pop off, especially some players that we didn't see good statistically in terms of Ange and Drone? And a lot of those questions were answered just in that one game. Of course, they did end up losing, but every map going the distance, they put up double digits on the 2 maps that they lost to TSM. So going into this week, Mad Lions, it's a lot more possible of a test for them. Last week, they faced a signed team. This week, they face a team that only brought together a month ago. If there's ever a chance for Mad Lions to get a good win, it's here.
Yeah, and I think for Mad Lions, Disguise is on like the exact same level as them. Like, to be honest, they both qualified through the first open qualifier. I think they both have a lot of experience, and one of the things that I remember Zextra telling us in their open qualifier run in that interview was that they brought on Will, who brings in a plethora of knowledge. He has changed the dynamic of Mad Lions and really gives kind of a new level to them. So that was really exciting to see when they played against TSM.
One enemy remaining.
And this Mad Lions roster was so incredibly close to potentially finding a first win. It seemed like they potentially had it in them to take the win in the first week. And based on the matchups that they had, I did feel like, hey, Mad start out the season really strong. I just want to look and see, like, next week, they're playing against M80. The week after that, they, I believe, are playing against the Guard. So they close out the season playing against OR Esports, which some would argue is potentially a softer opponent just based on results thus far. And honestly, they're a team with smaller names, lesser experience. So I think in general, they really needed to start out with the big wins because they know they're going into the meat of their schedule following the break towards the end of this month. That said, the way this group is shaping up, Gus, there's still a chance that they make playoffs, even with just like 2 wins. There's a world where that happens because of the fact that this is just kind of an interesting group. You definitely have your top 2, but the bottom 2, I feel like it's anyone's game.
It really is. Again, just with the fact that you still have TSM in this group, I feel like TSM, with their dub last week over Mad Lions, I feel like their games, Disguise and OR Esports, are going to be at around the same level that they faced with Mad Lions. So we already have pretty much a top 3 in this group settled. But what's going to be that difference? Who is going to be that difference for Mad Lions going forward? And from what we're seeing from Mad Lions, it has to be the one and only win. The one map that they ended up winning, I think they ended up taking it 13-4, 13-5 over TSM.
13-2.
13-2. It was way worse than that. Excuse me. And then, but then, of course, after that, you could kind of see a bit of a fall off. Maybe it comes down to the rules. Maybe it comes down to the fact that Will was bum rushing it down Icebox. This Mad Lions team, they can definitely rely on Will, who has a lot of tier 1 experience.
No, yeah, and just to give context to these statistics, it's Will when he wins from last week, which was the one map they won against TSM going 13-2. He popped off, and one thing that we know from the open qualifier run, and just a guy that played at Champions, by the way, he is so critical to this team of Mad Lions because he's one of the top fraggers. He's also one of the players that really gets the team going. They kind of play around a lot of his rifling when he's playing on the raids, which he's been playing a lot more frequently. And so now we're looking at those stats from that Icebox match. But then you go to the second and third map, and his stats just took the hardest downfall of all. Granted, the 80 yard does increase a little bit, but there's sample size to that, and he's still, he's still doing his damage as the Rays, getting damage with his util. But it's just, I think that if Will had stepped up in the level that we know he can, that TSM game, we could have been looking at Mad Lions sitting 1-0 right now. I mean, because if Will steps up just a smidge more, those games were 10-13. Couple rounds, you've got it. Mad Lions are 1-0 right now.
Yeah, and one of the things I'm looking at too is just the it's not on this graphic, but it's the duels that he was taking early in the round. If you look at the last 2 maps, I mean, it was particularly rough. He was 1-4 on bind for first kills, first deaths as the Rays. And then looking over at the last map of Ascent, he was 0-1 as Jet. Actually, excuse me, 2-5 as Jet. So, like, obviously, that is a pretty rough deviation to go 3-9 for your opening kills, opening duels, losing that many times. 12 rounds and you win only 3 of them. That's not what you expect from a player like Will, who has the experience that he has. And then on the opposite side, you've got a young who's thirsty for the opportunity to prove himself in the server. We're speaking of Clear. Looking at this disguised roster, this is probably the player that comes in with probably the most under the radar. A lot of people don't know this name. He's coming up from the tier 2 scene. I think Will obviously has a tremendous pedigree. A lot of people know what he did with like teams like 100 Thieves. So I think a lot of people are looking at Will like, oh, this should be easy. But Sully, I gotta be honest, I really was impressed with what we saw from Clear in week 1. Even though it wasn't a win for TSG, I saw promise from a young player.
I think you have to be impressed with Clear, like through his open qualifier run and even through last week. One player that like I kind of draw a lot of comparisons to, or maybe not comparisons directly, but he's kind of someone like Trent, right? Trent was this really unknown quality. I can't remember what his name was before, but he got randomly scouted. Now he's playing on probably one of the best teams in Challengers. Not saying that Clear is going to be the next Trent, but at least he's a player that was very much under the radar, and every game he's playing extremely well. How Trent was last year during the Guards' meteoric rise. Clear is one of those guys that I feel no matter what, and especially on a team that has so much experience, his kind of flashiness and under some amazing leadership as well, he's going to be a really key player. And so in this head-to-head, we're looking at, can Clear punch up to level and play as consistent? Is this a guy that can compete against no matter what? He did it relatively well last week against the Guard. Now we want to see, how does that form maintain? What changes have been made to get him in better positions and to make sure that you have a guy like Clear that's always popping off?
One of the things we want to talk about too with this team, looking at Disguise, historically speaking, one of the things that steals is refines talent. One of the things that Ocean historically does is finds it. Ocean was never necessarily known for being the person that caused the talent to shine. He was more like, I found this young diamond in the rough. And then Steel's the one that's like been known for sort of polishing that diamond and cleaning it up. So you have potential in this young player to take him from being quote unquote a no one, because it really, like, he's not a player that comes in with much of a reputation if you don't really pay attention to the tier 2, tier 3 scene, and become a big name in Valorant esports. And you can see it with this quote right here. So me and Ocean were cut from the same cloth. We approached the game the same way. I agree. Like it seems like on paper, this should create an incredible team specifically around this young player.
Yeah, and I think ideologically for this team, everyone should be very similar on the same page. There was an article, an interview that .esports did, and one thing that he said is, I love this team because we're all so open and we all understand what we want to do. And when there's a mistake, we all come in together. We all talk about it. So I feel like the ideology for this team is going to be extremely similar. A lot of people are going to be on the same page. And for someone like Clear, obviously he's going to have to adapt to this kind of style. We don't exactly know how he likes to play the game, what he's done with it. But I do think that for this team, it's kind of hard to see that between coach and IGL, there's not going to be strong chemistry. Between the coach and the core 3 from that X-Knights roster, there's not going to be strong chemistry.
No, and listen, Steel, he knew the type of challenge that he was facing with this team. Again, it's a fresher roster to even begin with. Steel last week, he just wasn't impressed with how they did. I mean, he talked a lot about his disappointment on a podcast. He said that it was a, quote, breakdown of game plan. A lot of moments of hesitation from DSG and moments where they just needed a fast decision and to commit to it. Steel, at this point, he needs to enact that ideology that you're talking about, Sully. He just tried to grind these players down, to really put them on the leash that they want to, I mean, essentially not make the mistakes that we were seeing last week. Individually, it looked like Steel was the one getting picked off, but in reality, Steel was making calls and the rest of the team weren't going behind him.
All right, I'm gonna give a little baking analogy because I got really into baking and cooking. Making stromboli. Stromboli is like one of my favorite things to make. If you cut into it, the second it comes out of the oven, it's gonna fall apart and it's gonna be a mess. Sometimes it takes time for the ingredients to gel together so that you can actually eat it. And why I'm saying that is, this team could be good, but it needs time gelled together. The stuff you're talking about, small decisions, mistakes that are made in the moment, little miscommunications, all of that takes time for you to get accustomed to how players play and how just players communicate. That's even more important, because sometimes teams, you have these great players and they come together, but everyone has a different approach to how they talk in game, how they play in game. And just like you learn how your opponents approach the game and you learn patterns and behaviors, you start to learn that with your own teammates. And that's one of the things that the Guard is basically saying makes them so good. It's like, hey, we know how everyone plays. We're very familiar with each other. So there are times when we just do our job. Like it becomes muscle memory to that extent. I also think that this team could be that good. Just it's going to take a bit.
No, I also think, given that statement, like, as much as you want to say the chemistry there, like, this should be a team that I have to say you expected a lot more from last week, right? They played good, but let's be honest, the map scores weren't as close as they could be, right? You say that, give it time, Stromboli, whatever. I forget the analogy. I already forgot it, but This is a team
Clearly
that
not a
has three
Baker.
core members, right? 3 core members from an old roster. Not only that, but they're also led by Ocean, their ex-coach. So there should, in my opinion, be a lot of chemistry already formulated. Maybe it doesn't instantly click with the likes of Steel, but the way that Steel talks about this team, it feels like the chemistry should already be there. And so that's where my concern is, that maybe it's not the chemistry, maybe it's the fact that they played against one of the best teams last week. I don't know what's going on with this team, but I also do think that given what we know from this team, these players, how Steel works, the fact that he said that, oh man, Ocean is a great coach, we think the exact same way, the chemistry should, in my opinion, already be there. Not maybe at the level of the guard, but definitely a lot more above maybe a team like Dark Ratio, who as well have a very similar stature with 4 players in this really strong core.
Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the maps, see where the series is going to be heading. I think if you're smart, yeah, Disguised should ban Icebox. Again, reminder, that was the 13-2 victory map they took over TSM last week. So in Washington, Disguised comes out and decides to ban Icebox. Getting that off the table, definitely not going to hurt them at all. And they did float it last week, so it's not like this is their perma. This is a map they feel comfortable playing. Whereas Mad Lions comes in and bans Haven, which is to be expected. That's the map they banned last week as well, Gus.
Yeah, and Pearl's already a pretty good for Disguised. I mean, it's the fact that we didn't see Pearl last week is actually a bit of a travesty, because coming in from the open qualifiers, we saw 3 games of Pearl from this team, and they only dropped 9 combined rounds on this map. So already DSG, they've already established themselves a little bit on this map, on both sides of the map, by the way, on both attack and defense. So there's not too many going on there. If anything, of course, we're looking over to Ascent. What happened last week? What were the breakdowns in communication that ended up leaving that as a wash from the guard over Disguise? Because from what I know from Mad Lions, Ascent is it's a map. It's not exactly that consistent, especially against like the tier 2 teams, but it's at least one that they're competent on.
What's interesting is this is actually a pretty decent map for both teams, should it go all 3 maps. I actually do look at that last map as potentially one that could be close. I'm not necessarily liking the Fracture pick for Disguise. I think that is going to be potentially product, but I guess you could say the same for Dark Ratio with Pearl. I think a lot of this is like, hey, you know, what can we expect from these teams? We haven't seen a whole lot of them play. The sample size, again, is definitely significantly smaller than it is for some of the other teams like the Guard, for instance, or even M80, where you can draw comparisons, Shopify Rebellion. But what we did see was promising from both teams. So it's like, okay, I have hopes for both teams. I do feel like this is a 3-mapper. I feel like we're going the distance. I don't feel like it's going to be blowout maps either. I feel like it's going to be close. We might even get multiple overtimes in this series, Sully.
Oh, I'm hoping for it, man. I expect a lot from both of these 2 teams, especially when a match of this caliber and has this much weight. Again, I'm going to reiterate, both teams, one is going 0-2, and that is just an extremely tough prospect to face. Like, to have to go 0-2, have a 2-week break, by the way. After this week, there's a 2-week break until we have matches again. You need to buckle down from that 0-2 situation, really grind out all the issues you have, and come back and win your next 3 games. Even have a chance at playoffs, by the way. You don't want things to come down where you're in a 2-3 situation and you're just praying 2 other teams are in a 2-3 situation. There's a lot on the line for these 2 teams. So I'm expecting from a team like Disguise, from a team like Mad Lions, when they have, again, for Mad Lions, that 4-player chemistry, you just bring in Will, brings in a plethora of ideas. For Disguise, you've got 3 core players from that X-Knights roster. Coach and Ocean and the chemistry with Steel, both these teams should really have worked out all the issues. And I think, Gus, like you were saying with that Ascent issue, hopefully we don't see those, because Disguise and Mad Lions, there's so much to play for here. So
much. Again, you mentioned the tough schedule, but it's the bulk of it. In the next 2 weeks is M80 followed by the Guard, and essentially with this group, unless you're getting a win over M80 or the Guard, you're essentially looking at what is a best of 3 between 3 other teams, or excuse me, a best of 2 between the other teams in your group. So it's just a little difficult to even say, if you can't beat one of the unsigned teams in your group, if you can't beat Disguise or you can't beat OR Esports, then there is just no way by the end of the season or by the end of the split that you're going to get in that 4th spot.
There is definitely significant pressure on Mad Lions here, because again, they're going into it like the thickest part of the schedule is Guard M80. We've been talking about that since the season started, and we'll be talking about that all group stage. the fact that these two teams ended up in the same group is somewhat tragic for everybody else.
Yeah.
But the Guard and M80 being back-to-back for so many teams is brutal. Disguised already played Guard. So, like, in a world where Disguised finds a win here, they're in a really good position, whereas Mad Lions is now down 0-2 going into back-to-back brutal matches against M80 and Guard. I mean, that's an 0-4 record potentially right off the rip. That's brutal. Now, it's not to say they're definitely going to lose those games, because even though we'll see them later today, I was not super impressed with M80. I thought that there was some inconsistencies there, pretty much similar to what we've seen from some of the other teams. Like I was saying before, like, teams take time to mesh. Yeah, they have all these players that come together and they're great, but you know, it's certainly a pressure situation for Mad Lions. But I'm told that the agent select is ready, so we are just about ready to jump into our first map in the series. I'll give it to the Youngbloods. Take it away, and I will see you guys on the other side of this first map.
Well, y'all heard it there from Mark. A lot at stake for both of these teams, specifically if you have to go against that MAB Guard back-to-back. We already saw OR Esports and what they had to do when they went against M80 first, and then the Guard just yesterday. They got wiped against the Guard. We were expecting a lot more from them. We're expecting a lot here today, and I think here on Fracture, it's a good middle ground. It's not a map that Disguise have ever won. Granted, they've only played it twice. I think this is maybe a map that hopefully they've had time to really refine. Remember, there was at least 2 weeks in between that first open qualifier to now. So hopefully this Disguise lineup, they've made the necessary changes and they're ready to come into this map.
Yeah, but listen, they almost never played Fracture, and they were banning it last week. They are now going back to banning Icebox instead, and now they have to play Fracture for only their 3rd time as a team. They won't, I mean, Sully, they weren't even able to get more than 12 combined rounds in their 2 games of Fracture that they lost, and they lost to Squirtle Squad 13-4. I mean, it just isn't a lot of hope to even begin with here for Disguise, but again, neither one of these teams have a comprehensive history on this map. So, like Bach said, I mean, we might as well see it, even considering how up in the air it is.
I do think Mad Lions maybe have the much deeper history when it comes to this map. I think one of the most notable things is they took out the Nation on Fracture, and for a lot of people watching, the Nation was the Stewie 2K roster, and they were formidable on Fracture. They hadn't dropped a single Fracture game. Not many teams had gotten above 5 rounds on the Nation before the matchup against Mad Lions, or as they were formerly known during that time, Dark Ratio. So this is a strong map for Mad Lions. It's not the best of maps for Disguise. I think starting on the attack, knowing the calling structure of Steel, this one is going to be exciting. It's going to start slow. It's going to get heavy. It's going to get weird. And here we are in the pistol round.
Already starts with quite a bit of a hold back over towards A. This could put quite the dent in this attack for Disguise. You see 2 players playing the Lurk right now.
Fast nade in. Clear will take a lot of space here. They're going to try for an A lobby crunch already.
I love this crunch. It's going to work out perfectly. Will is all the way out in the open. Same thing with Drone, but the 2 players, they're just taking their sweet time, waiting for the 3 players from site to push out instead. Zip, Gangsta, both getting fragged, but it's only Ainge! Ainge with a crossfire! He gets 2 headshots! Might he get a 3rd kill? I mean, he's just waiting for the cross, but he has the spike. This is beautiful from Ainge.
Gangsta on just 10 HP. He will have a fault line in at least 10 seconds, so there's a realm of possibility where he could maybe stun both these players. I mean, they're both kind of in line in front of this spike. He does have the opportunity to grab it as well, but I think a periodic checking here from Ainge is going to make things extremely difficult. Gangsta has 35 seconds left, so there is time for him to rotate it if he did want to. I don't know if the sound cue was picked up there, but I imagine they're just going to play together here, Mad Lions.
Yeah, it's just a contact here from the KJ. They have a turret here too. Again, 10 HP. You could play this as slow as you want, Mad Lions. It's just 1 bullet to the body. You just need the contact, but Gangsta, he's doing his best to isolate. That's all he wants right now. He wants a couple headshots. He wants the lucky pixel. It almost finds Ainge, but Ainge instead finds him through the wall with a headshot. 4 huge kills from Ainge to give Mad Lions the first.
It's a great start for Mad Lions. I mean, this is your map pick. Get the ball rolling, kind of feel out this map, because again, both these teams most likely have made changes coming into this week. Not maybe compositionally as we're seeing, but definitely probably when it comes to refining the really small issues. We're going to see a lot of things, again, I'd imagine, get kind of fixed up. Specifically speaking of that Disguise lineup where you were talking about it earlier, a lot of minuscule mistakes on that map of Ascent against the Guard. What are we going to see any of those here? Because, again, emphasis on this series, is that you lose, you're 0-2. We're going to keep reiterating that statement. So there's a lot to play for not just these players and this week, but just for the whole split in general. And we're talking as well further into 2023, where you're looking at circuit points at one. So a lot at stake for these teams. And between two teams, Gus, that I think are some of the best right now in terms of the open qualifier lineup.
Absolutely. Here we go, actually, in the middle of A. It's just going to be Clear doing his own thing.
Big kill.
Oh, my goodness gracious. It was Gangsta coming up from behind, but you had the good pinch. That's going to be the stuff that we were actually quite anticipating from Mad Lions last week, but we didn't exactly see Clear get let off that leash. If anything, Disguised, they were all playing up quite up as a team. If anything, it was Steel being the entry, which was quite the difference. But Clear, he's been let go a bit. You see the double satchel at the beginning of the round, but now Mad Lions, of course, they're facing up against Stingers. They have Spectres. They're looking for the retake. Gangsta does get the trade back. Lots of space here for DSG, but they do not have the middle of sight. Finally, Exile getting a frag. So much utility. These two players in the middle can't do anything. It's rifles. It's Spectres for Mad Lions, and not a single one of them can get anything. DSG pull it back.
We're in such a heavy, like, second round full buy meta, especially for these attacking teams. And Disguise play this one extremely well. It's not the slow tempo that we're used to when it comes to Steel's calling structure, but that round, that post lane in particular, Steel sets himself up for that Brim Molly, denies the spike defusal, and that gives time for two players to wrap out towards Sands. And when you're already at a man disadvantage, things just become so difficult because you have to split the attention, who's watching what. And that communication, I mean, we talk about chemistry between teams. I don't think it was there in that instance for Mad Lions to instantly split up their attention.
There.
And now we see where DSG did it best last week. Playing up as a team, it's that slow scale up. On Fracture, you could easily get some early map control, but they opt to stay on their spawn. But this is good for Mad Lions, completely mitigating any sort of instant pressure that they could get. They're just playing for contact, and they're just playing for rotation.
They have almost gotten the stack right here, but this is Disguise kind of, I mean, they're going to very confidently walk into this site, and so Clear already tagged down to 29
Great
HP.
nade.
Again, we're looking at that head-to-head between Clear and Will. Clear being one of the big players in the last round. And it does actually kick off here with a single kill. That is a Phantom in the hands now of Will, who is at full HP, has a decent bit of util, but Clear is going to have to deal with four of these players. Again, a guy that we talked about. You got to watch out for this man. We'll see what he can do here.
29 HP! And Clear could have gotten so much more. But this, again, DSG just chipping down the defense as they rotate. 4 players down in the spawn, 1 player isolated in spawn.
That's also 2 rifles picked up here now by Mad Lions. And Will still has a double blast pack and a boom bot to get in. Drone, not yet. With the stun. Oh, very well timed Molly though here. And
they're gonna wait
for
for
that
that
follow
Molly.
up is gonna be that fault line.
Okay, stun coming in. Gangsta can't make it out. Again, suppressed, but Steel around the corner. He might get found out by the boom bot. They gotta clear that out. Steel! The off angle works out perfectly for him. He lets Gangsta do all the work, taking all the peaks, but he gets this cheeky second frag. The crossfire on site was also pretty good too, but 2-1 DSG.
Now we're gonna have these rifles out here between Mad Lions and Disguised. A reach ult available here for Gangsta. Steel's gonna have the Brim ultimate as well. Same thing here with Ainge on the other side. It just takes one orb for Steel to get onto the orbital strike. So some major ultimates coming to the forefront of this round
Already.
And this round is a lot more heavy on Mad Lions, especially economically, because the loss here is going to give Disguise a lot of momentum. And it looks like already Disguise playing a little bit more heavy. Tower control might be established. Gangsta can go under tunnel with the Rolling Thunder. A lot of possibilities here towards this B approach, especially with the ultimates they have online.
Yeah, Mad Lions delaying too. They have double nanoswarms on stairs. They're really just going to hold on for time for their teammates to be able to rotate. But there's a trip in their spawn too. Mad Lions, they're not finding anything back over towards Dish. They're not even pushing back towards that tripwire. DSG are waiting for anything tricky.
They are playing a pretty heavy retake here, Mad Lions. Having only just Zexro be the guy sitting on the B side. Oh, that's a risky peek from Exalted. That gives up a lot of information there towards Mad Lions. In Disguise, they haven't done too much in terms of space taking. They're going to have Clear and Steel work up to get a lurk pick, but it goes back and forth, and now Mad Lions have regrouped in a 4-on-3.
I mean, yeah, you say that. Two players dry peek out of spawn, right into B. Clear getting yet another frag in the Rolling Thunders to confirm sight. I mean, that was literally just 2 people dry swinging out of B.
Trying to bait out this orbital strike.
30 seconds left.
They're holding it for a retake, not even to deny the spike plans. Gangsta is just gonna barely get out of it. We're playing with 2 orbital strikes. Steel's got his for the post plan, and he is in a good position to use it as well.
If they can find that Brim's position, they might be able to isolate. They actually utilize the orbital strike to clear out tower. Amazing spray from Gangsta. How does Gangsta stay alive there at all? Will now in a 1v2 behind orbital strike. Has Clear in a 1v1. Has the showstopper in front of him too if Clear wants to use it. Will also has one if he kills him, but Clear kills him instead.
A great
Again,
round.
Disguised. I mean, you can't really explain it other than, I mean, Disguised, they had the battles they wanted.
Forcing them all the way back into spawn. I don't know if that was the initial plan, but using that ultimate, that rolling thunder straight in towards the vendor spawn will give them so much time and so much space. And Clear just abusing the gaps and capitalizing on space, right? I mean, this round was a really big trade between Clear and Steel, right? Steel goes down, Clear is there to trade. He then capitalizes on space, giving up, recognizing the threat towards north side. And he goes here, and it is going to be Will who tries to get aggressive. The knife, I think, cancels out his ultimate. It actually might have been broken here, but Clear up top anyways. It's going to be good to find Zexro.
And they're waiting a second one too. Good, smart hold. Now Mad Lions, again, down to pistols, down to stingers. Just gonna see Disguise. Again, just try to work on the long term. Try to build up their economy.
They're taking it very cautiously. If Trick can get a single kill here, he will have the null command in the next round. Drone is guaranteed to have that rolling thunder, so we're in the middle ground where ultimates do end up becoming an important factor in a half like this. And Disguise, a team that hadn't won a single map of Fracture, they come into this with a really strong game plan. And that slow style really working in their favor. They're able to manipulate rotations like we saw in that last run. Like, as I was talking, Clear kind of just capitalizing on a lot of space that Mad Lions had given up. So this next round for Mad Lions is going to be with those rifles, and it's a question. I don't think they don't get the Trick ultimate online. They don't have the null command, but they will have that rolling thunder. It's how do they implement those ultimates moving forward, and the economy built up for Disguise. Similar stature for Mad Lions. They're gonna, except for it's vice versa, they're gonna need to win this round because their economy just not prevalent whatsoever. And yeah, Trick actually does get the ultimate.
Yeah, so they should
Placing sentry.
be going for one big take here. I mean, just with the fact that they do see the ultis in front of them. I mean, they can easily bait out. They can easily bait out these ultis.
Fast. Hold on. It looks really fast here towards the top side because you already have.
Going to be fast?
You have a quick play in position. Will's up top with a showstopper. He can play that if he wants. And yeah, they're looking to establish this really early control, and it's just gonna be Ziff.
Yep, Ziff is gone. It's just going to be the one kill, though. They see that now. Drone has gotten the information. You have Nanoswarm alongside the alarm bot in sight. The delay could happen here for Zexro. Everyone's coming back over towards Arcade, back over towards Tower. Zexro has time. Zexro is playing with space. Here we go. Could be a crossfire. The Tower player's here, but doesn't pull out the showstopper and steal instead with a double frag. Mad Lions, they still have guns. They still have position back over towards Arcade, but DSG very cleanly into sight.
And Clear has gotten into spawn as well. That null command popped at the exact moment they hear the showstopper get pulled. And that's a free pick. Because Will is going to get caught in midair. Maybe, I think Will made a misread there to pop that ultimate in this instance. And from that 4v5, Disguise have done a really good job at recovering this round. And here is where they specialize. They slow things down. And they're just going to cause fear in Mad Lions.
I think you see the intention, though. Drone's so close. He wants to use that rolling thunder to be able to take out that spike planner. And that's what they're doing. They're faking for the rolling thunder. They're faking for any turns of util, but they're still going to be able to plant. Drone distracted, and they use the rolling thunder to retake Tower instead. Exalt is the only one that gets hit. You have a crossfire in the middle of sight. Gangsta has the angle. Exalt is now back. 2 players remaining now. One of them is finally rotating from spawn. Trick comes in on time. Has Exalt in a 1v1 right around the corner. No! Steel comes out of the smoke. What a peek from Steel. 1v2 from Ange, and he's gone. Saved from Steel.
And I think Disguise in this round had just the better knowledge of how to play around these ultimates. Right? Like you said, trying to bait out that rolling thunder. using that null command to cancel out Will Showstopper, and even when in that 4v5 disadvantage, they still understand the game plan. It's okay, we gotta watch out for these ultimates, we have to be prepared for this kind of play, and they had players in position. Right, you look at the way they had that B postman, players were really far spread out to avoid that Rolling Thunder. And that resets Mad Lions here. And they're going to try very similar to what we saw, where they're going to have a stun over towards A main. Fast play here towards B to get this control. But there is no one here. Will with the hero rifle. And Disguise, they've gone towards the north side to play their default instead.
Might only catch one. It didn't catch anything.
No,
Steel
nothing
didn't
at
get
all.
caught. And with that, you get the rotation back over towards A. I mean, again, DSG. You're awaiting this slower playstyle. It didn't exactly know if on Fracture they were going to maybe change things up, take clear off the raise, maybe onto maybe an agent that they could take more space with. But so far, they're just letting Mad Lions pretty much waltz into them. They let time go by. They let Mad Lions get into their own heads, get into different positions. Now by the end of this round, it could just be clean once again.
Zexro does get his KJ ultimate, the lockdown online for round number 8, but this has been disguised all over in this map, to be honest. At least in this first half, things are starting to peel away for a team that, going into this was their map pick for Mad Lions, and it's a map that they very infrequently drop. An 80% map win rate between when they were Dark Ratio and now when they're Mad Lions. So we knew this map was a competent one. We knew this one was going to be a strong map for them. But it has not been that way so far. I think the way Disguise are playing, it is an extremely difficult style to play against, especially on a map like Fracture, where 4 different choke points, and with the kind of slowness of Disguise, it becomes unpredictable where they're going to go. And you saw in that last round, Mad Lions tried to pinch that south side of the map instead of north. Because of the fact they had already done the north side pinch, Disguise, with their slow style, you group up, you play the 5-man, especially in eco rounds like that, where they're infamous for doing that. You can't dismantle that kind of play because you're always going to walk into 2 or 3 players.
I mean, Dark Ratio, the success that they found on Fracture was just through that attack. Literally, I think the exact same way that we saw DSG play attack last week on Ascent, we saw Mad Lions play attack on this map. They let Zexro just go wild. They let Zexro go wild on attack. Everyone else just stayed structure, and they relied on that a lot. They can't do that this time. No one can go out on their own.
It's a really different setup here for Mad Lions. They put Ainge up in Heaven Tower on the B site with a shotgun and just KG util to play with. And they're going to put Zexro in a spot by himself. They're playing a retake here towards this A side. But they have a Rolling Thunder as well to work with. A lot of ultimates coming into this round. DSG are actually putting some acceleration into this hit.
Yeah, absolutely. Just the one person on site, though, taking on the Rolling Thunder. The smokes are off. The orbital strike is good. Clears away clear. Nobody else can get into the middle of sight. It ends up taking away one. Here we go again. Exalt coming out of main. There's still one more player coming out of there. It's incredible to me that Clear is still alive. 30 HP left, and finally he goes away. This retake is fully in there for Mad Lions. They have to cover up this lockdown, though. Gangsta trying to get a spray down. 3 seconds left. Couldn't get the kills, but Ziff is in on site. A 2v1.
Oh my gosh.
Headshot. What a shot from Ziff. Has an orbital strike to deal with. 40 seconds left. Ainge is in spawn, waiting for a contact. Ziff, there's no way he's getting closer. Ziff walking into the mouth of the beast. It's the Mad Lions instead that take it away.
And in a much faster round from Disguise. A much faster round. Trick goes huge with a double from Tower, by the way. His positioning to catch the players on dish to find those 2 players as well, that gives Mad Lions kind of a resurgence in that round. They can play the retake with their ults, they can play the retake, and they can play the post plan as well with Angel's orbital strike. Mad Lions able to knock on a second round, at least keeping their economy afloat, but unfortunately, with only 1 player walking away from that round, they are still economically struggling. And Disguise, once more, are doing a very similar approach, this time on the B site. Another fast look in towards B.
And they see the economy too. This is another opportunity to actually reset Mad Lions. TSG needs this round. 2 players currently holding up on site, but this is way slower for DSG.
He walks forward. Ainge gets forward instead, but Clear. They had that read. You tell the clear out just in case.
I mean, this has to be the push in now. Nobody flanking. They're going to have that Brim up soon. Ziff is just trying to clear up for Zextro, but again, no smokes up just yet.
This is so crazy. Yeah, no smokes, and they're not even committed to sight. Steel was hoping that someone would push down A, but no one does. Now the smokes are coming out. It's Ziff just catching Trick out in the open.
Look at the amount of control they have right up until the point they get the smokes up. Finally, they take sight with full tower control, full stairs control. It's only 2 players remaining here, but this is the disguise that we wanted to see. This is the play calling that we wanted to see. An investor flawless for Disguised.
It's start fast and then slow things down, which is what Disguise are always good at. And we're not seeing those very apparent mistakes where there's no trade, no one's swinging together. This seems to be a well-oiled machine. Everyone's positioning makes sense. All the util they're throwing makes sense. And Mad Lions are having an incredibly hard time combating that kind of play style. Another eco for them here. They're going to try and set Will up for another north side crunch. This time he's going to come from Dish. And similar to how Disguise countered the last crunch, they're just going to play towards the bottom part of the map where nobody is.
It's this, for the last 3 hard anti-ecos, or at least ones where Mad Lions had pistols, Disguise have just stayed towards one side of the map. Just wait. Just wait. And it's working out now where Mad Lions have 4 players crunching up the top side. They hear the TP, or the tripwire, excuse me.
Yeah, and they will know that that's going to be there at least was an attempt at a crunch towards the north side, so they're going to accelerate, take the site control. I don't think there's much here to write for Mad Lions. They only have a single Stinger and a Sheriff.
Yep, should just be trying to farm ult points or just trying to die at the very end. I mean, both have the exact same objective. DSG almost doing the exact same thing. That's why some of these players are hunting Ziff. He had 3 ult points left, and he gets all 3 of them in one fell swoop. Ultimate going into the next round, an investor flawless.
Back to back.
Okay, Disguise. This map could be over, but just this next round.
That's really scary to think. Again, Mad Lions, this is your map pick. And this is probably one of your last full buys. Next round is, well, you're obviously going to force up next round, but this is the last
going to be Spectres, right?
Full rifle round you're going to have here. Spectres and probably Stingers. So a loss here puts probably Disguise in a position to go 10-2. They're going fast here into the B site. No question about that. Maybe they ramp things up, get a pick, slow things down like they usually do, but they will send Clear very far out. He has been so instrumental in these rounds, getting deep into spawn every single time here on B. And they have switched up the setup here for Mad Lions. It's Zextro instead in tower, and Trick to try and deal with that pressure from Clear.
Yeah, and Zextro, excuse me, Trick. He has 1 ult point left. He gets a kill here. He could use that ulti to try to hold this down. And indeed, he gets the frag. He is suppressed. He has to wait a little bit until he can actually utilize this ultimate. This is very, very good for Disguise still. They're in on sight. And Ziff, the lurker, does get the kill onto Zextro. 4v4 now.
You have an orbital strike here and a null command to play the retake. And they are again trying to ban out all these util. First comes the aftershock, and Trick, still good for a second, has his null command as well. This gets tricky here for Disguise.
And the knife still going out. Trick, no, not. He actually utilized the ultimate right before he goes down. Good timing, but Ziff, good spot. They're actually pushing that smoke even more. 3 players from Mad Lions, and they're just stuck in their spawn. Again, no plant though. They have time. They're chilling for now. 35 seconds left, and they do not check their flank. Huge kills coming in. Mad Lions go down to 1. 1v3 now. Low HP. Drone has a little bit of a chance, but he has the wide swing out of the orbital strike. What an ulti from Steel, and an even better round from the rest of DSG.
Such a well-played round from Disguise. Again, these like late round adaptations, I think are where Disguise truly, truly shine. Is the way they're able to stay calm and composed. And losing 2 players, by the way, to Trick in a 4v3 again, they still decide, okay, we're not able to be out this orbital strike, let's put pressure. Steel gets up close. Clear's initial plan from his entry was to get close. And Mad Lions not able to deal with it. Last round of this half, and all they've really got is 1 single Vandal. This round becomes incredibly difficult, and this has been Disguised all over this first half.
Yeah, and I mean, you see the setup on A. They're trying really anything to give themselves a boost in this round. If Will gets any sort of contact, he can instantly use that showstopper. And DSG completely evading that sort of setup. Slow once again, the lack of information always leaves DSG at this sort of pace. It's methodical.
Mad Lions are scared. Alarmbot's going to reveal that this is a focus towards Arcade. 2 players still are going to work that part of Tree, but Clear's going to go in first. A showstopper does get the... Oh, no, it's not that. It gets the kill. It's instead the nade. Good trades coming through, and Will's going to have to try and act quick.
Yep, Will with 2 players right in front of him. And
That's
Ziff
just
comes out of the
ridiculous.
smoke to take him down. Good peek from Ziff. It's pretty much over now, right? 1v4?
This has just been a ridiculous first
Spike
half from
planted.
Disguise. Like, I can call and say Clear has probably been the key player in this first half, but man, it has just been
Everyone.
systematic
Switching
from
sides.
Disguise. They are taking Mad Lions to another level of fracture, and it's not one that Mad Lions have ever experienced before. 10-2 in the first half is a devastating scoreline. Regardless if you want to look at the minute map statistics of what side is better for Mad Lions, it doesn't matter. 10-2 is still devastating, and they go 50-50 most of the time in their first and second halves.
Yeah, I was more intrigued on how the retakes would go down for DSG, but when your defense is this good, when your shift around the attack is that good, always leaving the attack just enough space for you, or excuse me, leaving the defense enough space to then be able to capitalize. I mean, it's just good stuff from Disguised. Mad Lions now, though, on the attacking side, need to win 11 rounds in a row, or 10. Take it to overtime.
One suppressed.
Master play here from Disguise in towards A main. And a slow creep up here from Mad Lions over towards B. This attacking side holds a lot of promise.
Flash.
A 10-2 is a difficult scoreline to come back from. And so Mad Lions accelerating now in towards the B site. The tripwire might actually not a kill, and it does. 2 big frags already from Disguise.
Yeah, it's gonna be 3 people on site and no coverage from the spawn clear. Exalt coming out, 3 players coming out, and it's Steel with a
Yep.
double. I mean, there you go. You needed that if you're Mad Lions for a chance in this second half, and DSG have just swept the rug away.
Yeah, there was hope. I mean, they're much better on their attacking side against the Nation. They won 9 rounds out of the 11 played on their attacking side. That was in the second half. So Mad Lions are a team that is pretty good at making attacking halves work. But I think given that scoreline and given what we have now, it's almost impossible to see them coming back through this. 5 Stingers is what they're going to be working with. And there are already 4 players here on the A site. Are they just going to try and barrel it in? Because there's a stun, there's a nade, there's a molly, there's a smoke ready for this guy to contest A main.
Dude, how are there 4 people on this side of the map completely calling them out? Here we go, though. Knife alongside the fault line to try to clear out this corner. It might just work. Nobody else is clearing. The trades could come in for Mad Lions. Again, keyword could,
Holy.
but instead it's DSG. 3 players with the crossfire. 4 players, excuse me, in the middle of main. No chance. Zextro. I could try it, whatever. DSG. Already thinking about that next map again, Fracture. A rare map for these 2 teams, but for the fact that
Rare for
Disguise have
Disguise.
never won this map, I mean, this is a decent change.
And we're again seeing your critique of, or Steel's critique of, this felt like we weren't together. We didn't have the right, we weren't trading
It
properly.
was Steel's critique.
Felt a little uncoordinated, and it does not feel uncoordinated here. This feels like a Disguise that is on another level right now against Mad Lions. One last full buy and another attempt at an A hit where there's once again, I feel like I'm watching the same round as what we just watched. Like, it's deja vu. Same
It's
knife
literally-
goes out, the same contest, the same slow start. This time it's,
It's
gonna be
the
a stun.
same fault line, the same knife, and this time the same satchel doesn't actually miss its mark. There goes Will taking down Steel. Zextro coming out of dish. Again, the exact same position. Exalt does get the trade, but this is way better. 2 players going down. And now a big chance in a 3v4. Potentially Mad Lions might have sight.
Ooh, the spray from Exalt. I don't know if it was his spray that caught Will, but it did damage. No flash. I mean, you're up 12-2. I would have the
Oh,
confidence
no.
to take this
Wait a
kind of
minute.
swing.
Oh, yeah, Will is there. What a spray down from Gangsta. Right through the wall, but again, low HP for Will. 2 players remaining. Ange has a molly to work with, but it's his teammates that are currently in main. No molly under Trick either. Ange really just has to hold on to his sight. It's all in his lonesome. He does have a crossfire. He's waiting up for that cross. Ziff. Okay, that's a perfect cage. Isolates the
flash.
battle against Ainge. The 2v2 now as Ainge goes down.
Two
the
stingers,
crossfire's
too.
down. Okay, Cage goes down. Gangsta waiting for the 1v2. Can just defuse down to half, but the Cypher,
Oh!
no way, Gangsta finishes off the map with a bang.
And in 2v1 fashion,
Defenders win.
Gangsta is going to pull out map number 1 there for Disguise. I mean, I think even if, and that's a big if, they had won that map there, or that, apologies, not that map, that round, I don't know how the rest of this year's going to go. Would we have seen a comeback? I seriously doubt it. Disguise from top to bottom in this first map played exceptionally well, and there were no questions about, or there were questions, I have to say, but there were none after this one. Okay, are there mistakes going to be made? No mistakes here on Fractured. They can keep this up. I think Disguise here, we were hoping this was going to be a gigabanger, but the way it's shaping up, it looks like it's only going one way.
For now, absolutely. I mean, Pearl coming up next, it's Disguise's pick, and after that we have Ascent where they have a 90% win rate. The future is looking not so bad for Disguised, but again, Mad Lions, they faced this sort of adversity last week. The maps where they ended up losing, they ended up putting up double digits, and we just didn't see that in this map. We need to see that form come back, and Mad Lions, again, for the future of this tournament, they need this win because they face the two best teams in their group for the next 2 weeks. So let's see what happens after the break again with map number 2.
The funniest on the team. I don't know. We have a lot of characters. You know, we have a lot of funny people. I think it's pretty close. I think for my personal taste, I think I'd go with Baby Bay. I think Baby Bay probably. Yeah. Superman very underrated. Superman he's a sleeper pick. That is a sleeper funny guy that I don't think many people knew, but I didn't know about. Like I didn't have that perception like from talking around from other pro players. So I would say Superman's my sleeper pick. He's a close number 2.
I mean, the funniest person on my team has to be his new name. I mean, his old name is Dapper. New name, the Guru. It's on you right now. He's the best gaslighter in the world.
Oh, no thought needed. The funniest member of my team is 100% Adam Mata. 100%. Not even close. Yep. He's a comedian. He's killing it. He's killing it in the streaming. He's a comedian on Twitch.
Honestly, I gotta give it to John. Like, John is just like naturally funny. Like the way he reacts sometimes in our scrims, and then just like gives like these weird like replies to like stuff that we like mess up on. Like, it's too funny. I gotta give it to him.
I don't know, maybe Verno with his dry humor and sarcasm. It'll just get it.
Who's the funniest on my team? Yeah, this is deadly. It has to be this kid. It has to be Trent. He's like unintentionally just like very stupid. So like he just does funny stuff all the time, like on accident. So it has to be him.
Funniest. I think we're all like actually really funny. Like that's not even like a bias, like, you know, like on their teammate kind of thing. It's just like actually true. Like it's a bunch of funny guys. But I'd say like I have my hardest laughs with B-Dog probably.
The funniest on my team, I'd probably say, dude, everyone is so funny, I'm not gonna lie. Probably like Tex, or yeah, I'd probably say Tex is pretty funny. Yeah, he's dry humor, and like our personalities like match a lot, so whenever he thinks of something, I think the same thing. It's just so funny.